because I was scolded. I'm not Anderson Reggio. Anderson's back in the back. Hi, Anderson. Welcome for coming today. You want to? Okay, yeah, we do. It's the hat. And my name's Ed Baird, and I'm here because Quantum and the Gowrie Group have offered to put this all together each morning and talk about what the weather means for the day. I'm not here to tell you that what the weather is going to do, because I'm not a weather guy. But what I'm here to talk about is what it means to all of us, because I'm a sailor like all of you. So we're just going to talk that through, and as each day we do, we start with just the general course areas and make sure you understand where we're sailing. 1, 2, 3, you guys know which courses you're on, but it's just a reminder of what the islands do and where they are relative to your courses. That red line that's in the middle of course 1 up to Key West is sort of the magic line that I have when I sail on that course. When the breeze is to the left of that, you know, there's a pretty specific bunch of stuff that happens, and that is not what's going to happen today. So we won't talk about that stuff. What we're going to talk about is when the breeze is to the right of that line, it gets really scary on that race course. So it's going to be an interesting day, and for each of these race courses today, and actually probably the most important thing for us to talk about at first is it's going to be way different than it has been for the last couple of days and even last weekend. So you might want to start by saying, all right, we don't know anything about what we've seen out there so far. We're going to go back out. We're going to learn new stuff. First and foremost, we're going to have a different type of wind today. Second, we're going to have a different type of current today. And third, we're going to have waves that are way different than they've been because of the steadily shifting breeze that's coming around to the right. Okay? So before you leave the dock, and as you're going out, you're talking to the team about setting up for that sort of a situation. Now, we'll look at the let's see, going the wrong way there. We're going to look at the forecast just generally, talk about the things that are up there. This, of course, is you know, what we all instantly look at is the chart. How much wind, where's it going to come from, what's it going to be, you know, that sort of thing. But there's a lot more to these forecasts than just the chart of wind. However, the things that I picked out right away when I looked at this was that generally over the day, we're going to see this breeze go just a little bit to the right, and that's the stuff that's in the yellow over here on the left. Just those time periods, you know, 11 o'clock is when you're getting ready for starting that first race. You're just getting all your numbers sorted, and you can see that we've got a 20-degree range of what they expect the breeze to be blowing in right there. But then an hour and a half, 2 hours later, you know, that whole process moves over to the right 10 degrees. So does that happen instantly? Of course not. Well, the challenge for all of us is to go watch that breeze slowly shift and still keep our wind range of which number is a lift and which number is a header, you know, relative. So things are going to change during the day. And then when you go a little farther into the day, the thing that happens is that maybe the breeze goes a little bit to the right. You're going to have to not impose quite so much. As the breeze on the chart says it goes maybe a little more to the right, it also becomes a bigger range, a 30-degree wind range rather than a 20-degree wind range. So again, this is one of those little subtleties in the forecast that I look at and I say, it's going to get shiftier, puffier, holier during the day. So again, just what I'm learning from reading this. When I look over the next line with all the green, you know, it starts out the day pretty breezy, you know, as you can see already, but it's going to be steadily coming down in wind range speed. But I'm adding to this and reminding myself that one thing that's not going to come down is the waves. The waves are still going to be there because they take longer to settle. So we're going to start the day in a wavy condition with some nice breeze, and we're going to finish the day in that same wavy condition with less breeze, which means a different way of sailing your boat. More power, wider lanes to live in off the starting line or on the windward legs, things like that. And being more aggressive downwind later in the day as you surf those waves rather than just maybe planing along as you might do earlier. Those are the things I'm thinking of. As you see in the middle with the red, the forecaster says that we're more steady today with a warmer breeze aloft. Okay, that maybe isn't quite as gusty is what he's trying to tell us as it was yesterday with those big powerful gusts. And, of course, we weren't out there yesterday, so you didn't feel that, but it's going to be a little more steady in terms of just that amount of change top to bottom and right to left. As the day goes on, says the gusts will not be as frequent as yesterday, so they're not quite as common, which again to me means if you see a nice little area of pressure, you want to get over to it and use it, because there's not going to be as many of those. That's another way to look at that. And then stepping over to the column on the right with the blue, what I see there is actually something that I really take into account. You know, I look at that and say, well, if the 10-meter wind is going to be from 67, if that's the gradient, or not gradient, the 10-meter wind direction at 11 o'clock, but the range of wind direction that he's telling me on the surface is 40 to 60, I'm nervous that the puffs are going to be righties, which is that's a big change from what we've seen the last couple of days, where those puffs were generally coming from the left and coming from the shore. So I'm not going to leave the dock thinking, oh, we got to go to the right, but what I am going to be looking for is there may be different situations today than there have been, that we may see more right options, especially early in the day. Because as you see, that wind direction on the 10-meter wind only changes by a little bit, 6-7 degrees during the racing period, where down here, the actual average is changing more than that. So at the beginning of the day, it's actually outside the range that he's saying is shifts on the water. And at the end of the day, it's inside that range. It's not an absolute, it's not guaranteed, but it's something that I'm going to think about earlier in the day. There may be, the puffs might be a little bit more right than what we've seen, and then they'll be later in the day. Something to look for. Got to do that homework. Got to pay attention, but you got to also keep your mind open that it's not just going to be that left edge like it was the days before. So, scrolling down the page a little bit. As the breeze does become lighter, you're going to want to pay attention to the current more. Right? It's not a big change in high water to low water today at the beginning. It does get to be bigger at the end when high water is a couple of feet. It's not a huge change, but what is changing it is the wind direction. And as this wind slowly shifts to the right, you're going to start to see more wind-driven current coming down the way. And so that in combination with, and we'll just give you a little reminder here, at least on this one course yesterday, starting the race right here, these guys had a beautiful start. They were nice and clean, a boat length and a half up from the boat, but they still couldn't lay around the pin-in boat. So two things going on there. One is that you want to go out there and confirm that that anchor line is correctly set up and that you have that depth to get around the pin boat. You do that before your race starts, right? But the other thing is that with this wind blowing the way it is and the current starting to be likely going downwind more than it has been, you're going to have to pay attention to this pin in more than you did the other day. So even with a really well countersunk anchor line, you might have trouble laying the pin. Homework. So set that up with your teams. Let's see what else we got on the... So a couple more notes and comments down in the body of this thing. One is that it's windy now, and they really do expect it to just be slowly coming down as the sun comes up and it gets warmer. He said he thought it was going to be a sort of a 60 to 40% clouds to sunshine, so don't expect it to be just a beautiful sunny clear day yet. That's not happening. The light gradient now is going to veer to the right in the morning, but he says it's not a trend that would pay consistently. So what he's trying to tell us is, yes, the breeze is going to go to the right, but it's going to do it slowly enough That's not going to be the feature of your race course. Don't just go out right corner thinking, oh, by the time we get there, we're going to have a 15-degree trend to the right, and the next beat we're going to have another 15. That's not what he's saying. Watch those oscillations. 15, 20 degrees is the range that he's talking about. Then he says again that remember that the veering is due to the motion of the weather systems, at the high pressure. It's not about the sunshine coming out and the clouds parting. Don't look for some big shift when the clouds are opening and closing. That's not what we're looking for today. Some days, you know, you see a cloud line come through and, ooh, that's going to signal something. He's telling us that today that's not likely. In the green, the mixing depth, that's up and down right in the atmosphere, it's not very deep, so the wind should be steadier, which is why he's picked that 20-degree wind range rather than the 30 or 40-degree range that he had yesterday. So here we are looking at that. No favored side for gusts. Now that's the part where I'm wondering if he read his own numbers or not, and that might be worth a phone call saying, hey, you know, in the beginning of the day, do you think the gusts will be a little more righties and then straightening out later, or, you know, so, you know, we'll maybe check with him later on, but if you guys have a forecaster, that's the kind of question you'd want to ask. Down in the blue, likely that the forecast is too high in the wind speed later in the day. And that's a really important thing to think about. We've been here now for 3 days with big breeze. And the beginning of today is going to be pretty solid breeze. So you're going to go out there all wound up, all tightened up, all going along. And then as the day goes on, this breeze is going to come down. It's going to soften. The humidity gets higher. That makes, you know, and it gets warmer, which softens it more. He's not even sure it's going to be this windy, so it might soften more. But the waves are still there. And all of those things conspire against you when your rig is really tight and your sails are really flat. So remember to start powering up as the day goes on, maybe more than you're thinking for just that number on your chart for 12 knots or 14 knots. You know, you might want to soften a little more because of the power you're going to need in these waves. So something to think about there. And then down at the bottom, you know, we talked about the local effects yesterday of the twisting of the breeze around the island, things like that. But because of the fact that the breeze is more to the right, back on the chart here, more to the right than it has been, you're going to see Key West, especially on course 1, have a bigger wind shadow out farther onto the race course than we've seen in the past couple of days. So watch for that, and that doesn't mean anything more than pay more attention to what the gusts are doing up top and don't fall into a hole up there. Because it's going to get lighter as you get up to the top of your racetrack. That's what the forecaster is saying. So that's what I see in today's forecast. Are there any comments or questions about what's going on? For me, the big features are the current's going to be different today. The waves are going to probably be bigger relative to the breeze, and the breeze is going to be coming down as we sail during the day. So we're going to need to slowly power up and get excited about that. It might even be a drip change down one of the runs or something like that for some of the boats. Questions, thoughts? Ken Lagler always has a question. Yes?
So on course 3, what benefit do you get with regard to wave height by going left?
Excellent question. You know, on course 3, are you going to get out of the waves on the left today? And the answer is, we don't really know until you get out there and see what the angle is exactly of the wind that you're going to see. In theory, with a 50 wind direction, you should be, you know, under the shelter of that shore a little better on the left-hand side. But it's nowhere near as big of a change as it was yesterday and day before. So again, being out there on the race course an hour or 45 minutes early and sailing the whole windward leg gives you an opportunity to see if the wave pattern changes as you go up to the top of the leg or not. Let's go do the homework, right? Other questions or thoughts? Yes, sir, Ken.
The breeze slightly more left in the morning. Is that because the gradient is still slightly left, or is it the drainage wind coming off the colder island and the relatively colder Florida Bay?
You know, that's a fantastic question. What about this wind direction being more left in the morning Is that in, you know, coming out of the land and the different color, different temperature water that's north of this land, or is it you know, weather system driven? Well, I have no idea. How's that? No idea. So, if I really wanted to know the answer to that question, I'd call the forecaster and ask him. He would probably then say, "Oh wow, I didn't really think about that," right? Because they don't put a lot of effort into thinking about these little land masses in Florida. But it's a really good thing that is good for our memories and our history of coming to a place like this to try and learn. The fact is that every landmass affects the wind and the speed of it and the direction of it. That's, you know, it's around. And as that temperature changes during the day, certainly the temperature is going to go up on land more than it does on the water, because the water stays a steady, constant temperature, and the land, you know, gets hot with all the concrete and roofs and everything. So it will definitely adjust what's happening to the breeze. Question is, are we close enough to it to make a difference? You know, I don't know. You're going to have to go out and have a look around. But it's certainly possible that that is what's going on here, that there's just a little twist. He tells us in his forecast that don't think about the land and the, you know, this is not a temperature-driven thing. This is a front-driven thing. The front and the high pressure are getting farther and farther to the east of us, so we're now going to see this wind slowly shift to the right. He tells us that's the reason for it all. So I doubt that the land is as big a factor as it might be in a place where there's mountains or cooler, you know, a bigger temperature difference from the water to the land. Other questions? Tell you what, today, very likely you're going to see 3 races. That means at the end of the day, there will be 6 races on the chart. And there's a reasonably strong chance that there's only going to be 4 or maybe 5 races left for the rest of the week. So when you finish today's racing, you're going to be more than halfway done with the series. And you know, what I always tell my kids when they go out with their junior programs, you know, is this is moving day. This is when all the action happens. At the end of today, some people are going to have fallen off the cliff, and others are going to be stepping up to where they're going to be for the rest of the week. So I'd love for all you guys to be the ones stepping up. Get your homework done, check out what's going on out there, and please remember to come tomorrow morning and tell us what worked or didn't work today, because all of us are trying to learn these venues, get better at it, and be successful. So, all right, guys, have a great